Welcome to Hochoka Podcast.
So Mother Teresa is often quoted, "I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot. Together we can do great things." That's the great benefit of collaboration, and collaboration shapes much of the work that we do at St. Joseph's. Let's learn more about our collaboration at St. Joseph's with Notre Dame. Hello, Midaki Apin. Welcome to Hochoka here at the center of St. Joseph's Indian Schools campus. I'm Scott Wooster, your Hochoka host. Joining me today is William Newkirk, Director of the American Indian Catholic Schools Network out of the University of Notre Dame. St. Joe's belongs to the network, and Will is here in Hochoka to tell us what that means. So, Will, a warm Hochoka welcome to you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's good to have you here on our campus. So I'm gonna start at the very beginning for you.
Great.
American Indian Catholic Schools Network. What does that mean? And who are the native nations that are a part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, great to be here. So the American Indian Catholic Schools Network is a network and a community of 8 indigenous Catholic schools, and it's housed as a program within the University of Notre Dame and the Alliance for Catholic Education, which ACE, many people call it. ACE is Notre Dame's effort to sustain, strengthen, and transform Catholic schools, primarily K-12 Catholic schools with a special focus on under-resourced Catholic schools.
Okay.
So this focus really is a beautiful mission fit with the work going on in Indigenous Catholic schools today.
Okay.
The network moved to Notre Dame. It had been at Creighton. It moved to Notre Dame in 2017 with, again, the sense of mission fit of supporting a community and empowering educators in collaborative ways to transform Native Catholic schools. And it came with 5 schools, and always from the heart and start of the network, even before it came to Notre Dame, expansion has been a priority.
Okay.
This spirit of inclusion, sharing best practices. Native Catholic schools are isolated in many ways. A Catholic school on the reservation or serving students from reservation communities. The history of boarding schools, geographic isolation, resources, all of those pieces lead to a very unique mission, a truly unique mission. And that sense of solidarity and community is important. So that's where that was housed and founded. And because of that, we were really striving to grow. So like I said, 5 schools started in the network. We've grown to 8, and we hope to grow even this school year to more. There are 8 schools in the network. St. Mary's Mission serves Red Lake Nation. 2 schools in South Dakota, St. Joe's, and serves many indigenous communities in South Dakota and beyond. Then a little west of here, Mapialuta Red Cloud serves the Oglala Sioux community on Pine Ridge. And then De La Salle Blackfeet in Browning, Montana, serves the Blackfeet Nation. And then St. Augs is in Winnebago, Nebraska. They serve Ho-Chunk and Omaha communities, 2 different indigenous communities. And then 3 schools in the Southwest. St. Anthony's in Zuni, New Mexico, serves the Zuni Pueblo. St. Joseph's Mission School. I always have to make that's distinct. We have 2 St. Joe's, which is beautiful. St. Joe's Indian School.
Yeah.
Then St. Joe Mission School serves the Acoma and Laguna Pueblos. And then St. Charles is a school in the Diocese of Tucson. In San Carlos, Arizona, they serve the San Carlos Apache Nation, which is just a beautiful collection of diverse, distinct indigenous communities that really celebrate the diversity and the collection of these schools and what the global church looks like in a small snapshot for sure.
Yeah. So there's 8 that are part of your network so far. There's how many are there that are around? There's a distinction here that I think is pretty interesting because there's Catholic boarding schools, and there were a lot of them.
Right. Yeah.
Make that distinction better.
So there were probably, there's been a lot more research in the last couple of years. In my doctorate, I looked at this and the experience of boarding school survivors and students who go on to teach. But in that research, what I found and what many folks have found is probably 100 Catholic boarding schools at its peak, 100 years ago or so, which is a lot. Yeah. And now there are 21.
Okay.
21 Native Catholic schools left today. Most of them are day schools. Most of them are day schools. And 20% or so of these schools are still open. That's saying something. We think it's because a lot of the schools were harsh places that maybe did need to close. The schools that have remained open St. Joe's and the other 7 we talk about and work with, and I would say all 21 are schools that have modeled culturally responsive pedagogy, that are empowering Indigenous people to lead and teach, that are celebrating the language and culture, that are serving maybe a primarily non-Catholic population. Their families go there because they trust the place, not because that there's forced conversion. So it's a distinct model of these schools that's kind of undertold, but really powerful in the work of truth and healing and celebration of culture and building trust. And we work with 8 of those schools, and we want to work with all 21. Right. It is the goal.
And I love that distinction because I think it shows that the 21 schools are growing, have grown, and want to continue to grow. And if they're part of your network, there's a demonstration of that willingness to grow by their inclusion in that. They want to grow together.
Want a hunger to grow together, and there's an urgency to grow together.
Okay.
You know, when I first started working in Native Catholic schools maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I think there were 24 schools. We're at 21. We know Catholic schools are fragile to begin with, but Native Catholic schools, because we talked about that unique mission, they are, I think, in even more urgent and maybe desperate place for survival. And we believe that this coalition and sense of solidarity in the network can be a key piece to help not only sustain the school, but lead it to transformation and flourishing. Yeah,
and so it's a relatively new, what you're doing is relatively new.
It is. I mean, and especially if you look at the history. This is a long history of the Catholic Church in Indian country. So yes, this is a new endeavor for sure.
I want to say you said 2013 at Creighton, 2017 or 18
it came
Notre Dame.
At Notre Dame in 2017. So not even 10 years at Notre Dame.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about evolution, but why was it necessary? What's the evolution of it? Why do you feel like it's necessary to bring these schools on? I mean, they're isolated, but they're already serving kids. They're doing their thing. What's the great piece about the collaboration that they're doing?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier, but in this fragile nature of Native Catholic schools, every school that's ever been part of the American Indian Catholic Schools Network is still open today. Yeah. And so we believe that with our priorities of formation, college access, and research, and with that, a deep sense of community and shared practices and collaboration, that just like any community that's on fire, the power of relationship and trust and shared vision can support students and elevate their educational experience in a way where a community looks at that school and they see something different's happening there. And our community is better because of it. And if many different, those communities I shared and more beyond can say that, we believe that Native students who go to these schools are going to flourish and serve their community in a way we haven't seen before. And it's led by the school communities, but that at a national network level that continues and grows and is deeply inclusive, that's only going to be strengthened, and best practices are shared, and stories are shared of hope that inspire other schools to do something different or to reach out in a different way. I think that contagious sense of love and commitment comes through story that has inspired us to grow and has inspired schools to kind of grow in how they best serve their community. Yeah.
So you're collaborating we know as I'm a counselor here, so I work with kids day in, day out. We have teachers, house parents, and I think it's nice to know that you're not alone, that other people are doing the same kind of work, both to share the struggles, but also to share the pride of what you're doing, because there's a lot of that too. And
absolutely,
it's a good way to do it.
Exactly. It's kind of like, sorrow and joy, challenge and opportunity. They're all mixed. You started with Mother Teresa, and I love this Mother Teresa line, the one you shared, another one. She says, and I think Greg Boyle cites this a lot, the Jesuit priest, the greatest sadness in the world is that we've forgotten we belong to each other. And I think, look at the history of the church, look at the history of the government in the communities we serve, like there's been a lot of division and a lot of separation. And this network, we hope and vision, is kind of a beacon of solidarity and belonging to each other, because these schools show that. And the challenges in these schools are very serious and the opportunities are very grand. And so to share those stories with each other and for us to facilitate some formation of teachers and work with college access opportunities on the distinct pathways for Indigenous students, something special can come about there that's only going to grow, and those ripple effects and stories will touch hearts, we believe, far beyond.
So I want to talk a little bit about you.
Yeah.
I know I doubt you at an early age said, hey, someday I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be the head of the American Indian School, Catholic Schools Network. And there's a quote I'm going to throw at you here. Frederick Buechner, okay, he's an American writer and theologian. He says, and I'm going to quote him here, vocation is the place where our deep gladness meets the world's deep need, okay? And so, two parts. How did you get where you are, and why do I sense some truth in that quote for you?
Yeah, that's great. Well, you are correct. When I was 8 years old, this was not my dream. And if I were an 8-year-old, or 8-year-old Will Newkirk saw 35-year-old Will Newkirk not having been the center fielder for the Minnesota Twins, like, that's disappointment. Like, I'd probably be on my second or third World Series ring and, like, nearing retirement.
You and Kirby.
The vision is definitely different than where we ended up, but it is so much better than I could have ever expected. And so I grew up in Minnesota, obviously a Twins fan, and two parents for my mom, Margie, my dad, Jeff. My dad taught at a local public school. My mom taught at St. Francis, the Catholic school I attended. And so education was at the heart of who they are and other-centered vocation for both of them. And so I witnessed that my whole life. And as I got older, my athletic abilities were clearly pretty scarce, and so I was not going to be going into the big leagues. So thought a lot about teaching and as service, and because they modeled that. And I think I went to St. John's University. My high school, Rita Hendrickson, was a campus minister at St. John's. I got to know a professor named Jeff Castor, who actually taught me that quote, the Friedrich Buechner quote on vocation, and I worked with him at a youth and theology ministry camp. So I was surrounded by these amazing people who were introducing service opportunities and thinking about questions of justice and kinship and belonging to each other. And I went on a service experience to the White Earth Nation as a sophomore at St. John's, St. Ben's, and saw the beauty and the challenge and the resilience and the stories of the White Earth Nation, and was just really moved by it deeply. And I think that was an important moment where kind of this hunger for service and justice, and then I kind of saw the needs and also the successes and the triumphs in that community. And in discernment, just continued to wrestle with questions and a call around education and justice, and then taught in Oklahoma, and continually just was introduced and experienced and witnessed amazing resilience and beauty and complexity in Indigenous communities. And as someone from Minnesota, an Indigenous land, who did not have a lot of experience with that, I think those questions came up and continued to wrestle and push me to stand in a place where I could learn from and walk with and maybe be a co-conspirator. I really think my job is a lot of listening with the ear of our heart, like St. Benedict says, and working with and advocating for transformative education that's taking place in these schools. And so as an 8-year-old, never would have envisioned this path, but you look back and the people along the way, the people in these schools, I just couldn't imagine a more powerful path that I'm so privileged and grateful to be a part of. I
love how you put that trip to White Earth was transformative for you. And I like what you're doing now at Notre Dame. We talked about a little bit off camera about sending interns out here in the summer to work with the Bookmobile, and our viewers have seen some of those interns on here. And every one of them has had that transformative experience that you're talking about, where there was something, even that transformative experience might not have led you to go, I'm going to be the director of this thing at someday, but it led you to know that there was something else, and there was some change that was possible that you were going to do instead of becoming Kirby Puckett or Dan Gladden or whoever for the Twins.
Joe Mauer.
There we go. That's a little more from your time. But I think, I think you see how it's worthwhile to continue to give people, young people, those experiences so they can be led into this work in a time where a lot of people are kind of going away from that sort of thing.
Yeah. And we see that at Notre Dame, Holy Cross College in South Bend, St. Ben, St. John's, where I went. Less young men and women are going into to service, going into education, nonprofit work, which is a challenge and a problem for a lot of reasons. And like we said, our work the priority is formation of educators in Native Catholic schools. That's what our heart is, and that's what the work, and those are the people changing the game. But we also believe in our college access bucket that the exchange between students at Holy Cross College, St. Mary's College, and Notre Dame, the tri-campus where Notre Dame lies, whether it's service opportunities like the bookmobile here or an on-purpose trip where we took 11 Notre Dame students around wrestling with ethical questions to New Mexico in our AICSN schools there. Those experiences are so rare and so powerful, and what it raises, whether it's a small piece of what they're going to do next summer or a big piece on vocation, what they're going to do the rest of their lives. So few young men and women have the experience to go to Native Catholic schools and to visit reservation communities and see the resilience and the beauty and the complexity. And so we also know that it benefits them, but the schools want us to visit, and they want to be part of that exchange. And I think that's what's so important, is that these Notre Dame students are learning a lot. And St. Joseph Mission School in San Fidel, New Mexico, has a hunger for more students to come. They love to share their culture in their community, and they love to learn what it's like to be a college student. And, we bring students to Notre Dame and Holy Cross College and St. Mary's as part of this pilgrimage, the middle school pilgrimage. And I love that because we talk about the 3 students who came to St. Joe's this summer for the bookmobile, and they had a transformative experience. On the flip side, these middle school students from Native Catholic schools, we had 49. 7 different schools came this past April. My colleague Colin Gortner did an amazing job. They meet with Native students. They meet with Native faculty and staff. They learn about the college pathways, the unique opportunities and challenges for Indigenous students. And they leave, and maybe they want to go to Notre Dame. That's not the goal. The goal is that they know that they have a path, and a vocational path around deep gladness and deep need that they're called to. And that's what I think is so powerful, is that exchange. That Notre Dame students are benefiting and growing, and students from our Native Catholic schools are. And they're sharing in that together in a sense of solidarity, which is the vision of what we're trying to do.
True collaboration.
Exactly.
So does the network have a basic framework, a kind of strategic plan, and what might that look like for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's so important. We have the American Indian Catholic Schools Network right now is guided by a vision framework, and that's kind of the terminology we use at Notre Dame right now, kind of bringing in our vision and a framework to guide the strategy and tactics and work and questions. A few years ago, the network came together, 2019, made a strategic planning document, and we've used key pieces of that in the last many years. But now, in this next era, with a new grant from the Better Way Foundation, we have a vision framework that lays out key priorities, foundational themes, different pieces like that to really guide our work. And the key priorities are, I have mentioned this earlier, formation of educators, college access, and undergraduate engagement in research. And we believe that this guide, this vision, with those 3 priorities, that we at ACE and American Indian Catholic Schools Network, working with these schools, are uniquely positioned to really facilitate and empower transformational learning and elevation of the educational experience through formation, college access, and research. Okay.
So what are the challenges? And this is a loaded question. This is a tough one. I've kind of experienced this for my time here at St. Joe's. What's the challenge of being both an Indigenous school and a Catholic school?
There are many, right? There are many challenges, and there are many opportunities in that, and that's the beauty of this story. And I think, just like this vision framework, it was so crucial that we get a lot of perspective and a lot of voice, driven by voice and stories from the educators and the families and the students in these schools. That's crucial, because I work at Notre Dame. The educators and families, they're in these school communities every day, and we can kind of help facilitate this national work and hopefully do it really well. But these stories and the perspective we can best get and most authentically and purposefully get from the community. So listening is key. It's so key. And the challenge is, I think what I hear so much would be the teacher or educator shortage.
Right.
Leaders and teachers. We're seeing that everywhere in Catholic schools, but in Native Catholic schools, it is dire. It is dire, especially getting leaders from the community, graduates of the schools. That's what we think a lot about formation. How can we empower graduates of different Native Catholic schools to come back and teach?
Yeah.
So the teacher shortage piece is hugely, hugely consequential. I also think the unique challenges facing young people in Indian country is really important around relationships, around mental health, around language revitalization, all of those pieces. There is amazing growth and success, and there are a lot of challenges that young Indigenous people are facing in reservation communities and beyond. And so I think those two pieces are so important, along with the history of the church in Indian country. And we think about boarding schools in particular. Some of our schools are forward boarding schools, some are not. They all look at truth and healing in different ways, but if these schools are really true vessels of hope and healing and transformation, the schools are doing a good job bringing in local teachers and leaders to talk about language and culture and pass that on. They're providing pathways for these students to flourish with who they are amidst the challenges from culture and society facing them. And then they're doing it in a way that is bridging the complexity and harshness of history in a way that now the education they receive is transforming who they are and how they're going to serve their community.
Yeah. I love that answer. Basically, you boil it down to three very, very complex ideas.
Exactly.
But it makes sense.
Yeah, it shows the importance of these schools in such an important way.
Yeah, I think so. So St. Joe's, how did we come to be a part of this? What role do we play? And how do you see the network continuing to evolve?
Absolutely. I think this is really cool to talk about because St. Joe's was not an original member.
Okay.
St. Joe's came on late summer, fall of 2020, which is an amazing time to become part of a network. But I think what it showed was, given the intensified challenges and complexities of the COVID era, that we needed to include it, continue to grow and expand and bring in more voices. And so as the network came to Notre Dame, there was a hunger by all the school leaders and the leadership at Notre Dame and AICSN to grow. And what we found is when we've gone from 5 to 8 schools, all the schools that have come on, we've had good relationships with. They've partnered with us in different ways. So Claire and Joe, two great leaders here, I think in summer of 2018 started to interact with us and come even to some in-person convenings to build relationships with the different school leaders in our work. And so by 2020, they were so connected to a number of people, and we saw the school as a very hopeful and additive piece of the network, and they also shared a hunger to learn from the network. And so the work around truth and healing and so many of the services they provide, we thought, all of us, that this would be a great school to come on, and I just feel like it's been seamless. It seems like they've been here as part of our network so much. You all have been so much a part of this way longer than since 2020. Participation in teacher formation opportunities in the summer at Notre Dame, leadership opportunities and summits where we visit other schools. So many Notre Dame and Holy Cross College students now coming here. We brought all our school leaders here in 21. I have been so heartened about the engagement and the humility that St. Joe's has been part of and shared a lot of stories. And I in particular, I think of the South Dakota collaboration with Mont Pieluta Red Cloud. A lot of work around truth and healing and conversation between these two schools. So I think we're just getting started, truly, in that partnership.
I think so too, and it has been seamless. And so, because it's been so seamless, it feels like a perfect fit. And I like that.
It does, and I think a great one last example of that was Lorraine, your wife, and an amazing educator, and Joe, coming to Notre Dame and presenting at an academic conference this fall about the tradition of education and the cultural celebration that takes place in the pedagogy and teaching here. And that was such a witness for us to see so many different people at Notre Dame for an ethics and culture conference learning from a native Catholic school. And that's part of the AICSN. That was a really a very eye-opening and hopeful moment of what this partnership can look like. So
thanks for joining us here, Will, and to our audience, thank you for joining us here at Hochoka at the center of St. Joseph's Indian Schools campus, where we talk about issues that are central to Native American education today. Until next time, stay centered.